Hello everyone, hello Durin, hello Hartmut.
Hi.
Bonjour à tous nos utilisateurs français habituels et à nos spectateurs. Je suis Franck Payen et je vais être avec vous pendant une petite heure, mais aujourd'hui ça va être intégralement en anglais. So I just told them that today is not being displayed in French.
Merci.
Merci. Do you have some French words to tell them? That's a good one. That's a good start. Notre session va être principalement en anglais, juste pour des questions de rythme. Si jamais vous avez des problèmes de traduction, etc., j'essaierai de revenir sur tous ces sujets-là. Vous aurez de toute façon, comme d'habitude, pour ceux qui nous suivent, le chat. N'hésitez pas à poser vos questions, c'est le moment. On a un petit peu la chance d'avoir les maîtres d'audition, ceux qui nous fabriquent le logiciel. Donc voilà, ça devrait nous permettre d'avoir une très très belle session avec un petit peu de démo de la part de Durin et Hartmut. Et puis on va repasser intégralement en anglais. Donc d'ailleurs, si jamais vous voyez des gens dans le chat qui sont un peu perdus parce que cette fois-ci c'est en anglais, vous leur redites qu'ils ne s'inquiètent pas et qu'ils restent avec nous. I just gave them all the basic information so nobody's surprised.
Oh, we figured it out.
Yeah.
We understood.
Good. Oh, you're getting good at French. So I would like to ask you a very first question about that. Is there some kind of automatic Adobe Sensei translation for people doing live streaming in Audition?
Not yet.
Oh.
I think we have to get non-translated transcription working first, and then we can start to translate it a little bit better. We're definitely seeing a lot of improvements in the ability to transcript. I don't know about real time, but transcripting or getting transcripts for long recordings, the technology's improved significantly. It's not where we all dreamed it was going to be. This magical future where robots and computers know everything we're saying perfectly, but it's getting closer and closer.
I've heard a lot of computers are now learning everything we are doing. So.
Yeah, so actually we have some experience, especially with transcription from the past in Premiere Pro. So, and we know that it really needs to be a good solution to be sufficient for the user. So it doesn't help if you have, 60% accuracy or something. It really needs to be perfect.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's easier to do this manually.
Yeah, of course. So now I've asked my silly question for the beginning. I'm gonna ask more regular questions. I see some people say they don't have audio. Hope it's okay. Here it sounds to be okay. Let me just check a second.
Testing.
Yeah, we're testing and everything is fine.
Testing.
Yeah, we have audio. Louis, I guess you have to check your audio software first and tell us everything is fine. So my very first question is, who are you guys?
Well, I'm Durin Gleaves. I'm from Seattle, Washington in the U.S. And I'm the product manager for audio at Adobe, which includes Audition. It includes audio workflows in Premiere and some of the other applications that we have.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm Hartmut Warncke. I'm a senior engineering manager of the audio team. So as Durin, I'm looking after Audition, but also audio workflows across applications. So in Premiere, in After Effects. And I'm working from Hamburg, where we have a development site of about 200 people.
Wow, 200 people for audio.
Not just on
No.
200 people on Audition, you know.
Wow.
That's awesome. Could both of you describe quickly your background and how you got involved into sound and audio processing?
Well, when I was a kid, my first explorations into audio was generally hacking a CB radio to my parents' car battery and talking with truck drivers and random no goods. After that, I got into playing with music, playing with sound, wiring and rewiring turntables to listen to records backwards and play with those. I did a short stint of college radio when I was going to school, a jazz station that nobody listened to, and I was on in the early morning when nobody was listening. That's led to just being interested in making things with sound. I have an art background and a design background, so I started to create a lot of sound-based art or sound for other people's art installations. And eventually that kind of led me to Adobe when I saw job openings shortly after we acquired Centrillium, which made the application Cool Edit, which became Audition, which is actually, we're celebrating right now. It's the Summer of Sound. It's Audition's 25th anniversary. Wow. So all summer we're doing a podcast series. We're doing video tutorials, kind of some backgrounds, some customer profiles. We're giving away different prizes are being given away throughout the summer with a pretty cool prize package, and that's being hosted by Music Radio Creative with Mike Russell. So
oh my
if
god!
If you're on YouTube, you've ever typed in Adobe Audition on Google, you've seen Mike Russell's video.
Music Radio Creative.
Yes, exactly.
It's a wonderful voice.
So he's hosting it. They're producing them all, and it's been fantastic.
Yeah, that's really great, because when I have something to learn on Audition, I go to his YouTube channel first. I learn things, and then I'm just trying to basically translate it for my French audience. So it's great to.
That's great. That's
to know that you're working with him. And what about you, Hartmut?
Yeah, so for me it actually started, so I was always very addicted to classical music from a young kid. So my mother was or is a classical music maniac, and I was born into that. And actually it started all off with a C64 from
Commodore.
And I remember that there were pieces from Bartók where I actually put in all the notes, the digital numbers, and when I made a mistake, it was really hard to figure out what it was. So it's good to take modern music because you don't hear if you're doing a mistake. And then I studied computer science and physics, so I know what a sound wave is, and then I did completely different stuff for many years. Also at Adobe, working for Adobe Go Live, the very first product in Hamburg actually. And then I was leading a group looking after analyzing assets in order to figure out what is in there. So look in a picture and search for faces and colors, and look into audio in order to figure out what's going on there. If there's a male voice, a female voice, if there's somebody kissing, things like that. We were actually pitching some technology which was called noise to meaning at Adobe Max a few years ago as a sneak peek. And this was kind of the start, and then there was the open position for Audition, and I switched over.
Okay, that's great. That's awesome to be able to switch from getting back to your passion. Well, to your home's passion, and find a good job around that in the company. So now both of you are like 100% involved in Audition. More?
No, a fraction of that.
Okay. I'm trying to get more people involved in that tool.
We'd love to. I mean, it's not with users. It's great, but it's certainly there's a fine line between too many cooks spoiling the broth and having a really robust team. So we're in a pretty good position.
Yeah, I've heard that sentence about developing where they say like, you need 200 men days to do that, so bring me 200 guys, 200 men, and we're gonna do that in one day.
No, it doesn't work that way. No.
No, it sometimes makes it slower if you have more people, right?
Yeah,
because they are discussing more. So.
It's like it's like when you try to find some multi-threading processing behind.
Yeah, exactly.
That could be one of my questions. I didn't ask about that. I wanted to have like maybe when we switch to demo, what would be the least known feature in Audition, but some feature that would be the most useful to people, like something they just didn't get, and they're like, it's been there like for ages, and you're very frustrated about that.
Yeah.
What would it be? Did you want me to show your screen?
No, not yet. But give me a minute, and we can do that. Let me.
So which is yours?
My favorite feature, and the one that whenever I show it to somebody who hasn't seen it before, their jaw drops to the floor, is a feature we have called Remix.
The same for me.
Yeah. Remix is amazing.
You have to pick another one after.
Yeah, you've got some time. Actually, you talk about yours while I find a good file to show this, because we don't have the rights to everything that we're going to stream on eBay. Or,
so no, maybe I think what is interesting in general, when we come up with new features, it always takes a long time till actually people are looking into that, figuring out and integrating this in their day-to-day workflows.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes you're disappointed if you are shipping a new fantastic feature and it takes half a year that there is a user reaction, but then it goes on and on. So you need to be patient.
And do you sometimes like showcase new features during like the Max event, and you have like a positive feedback in the audience, like, yeah, oh my god, you have that?
Yeah. So especially if we are at NAB or IBC, so the big trade shows, and then somebody is showing the new feature, they are always people coming to the booth. It's really crowded. You have to answer a lot of questions, but yeah, that's really fun. So you found something, Durin?
Did you get something? You want to try that?
Yeah, we're gonna do this live. This could be totally a MS failure.
Okay.
Let me play a little bit.
Let's just say if it.
Let's see if this can be the right. The best song. It's a little dreamy. Let me find something that's a little more.
Okay. We can have a relaxing time with your audio. I'm gonna like put some incense and. And I'm still using my live audience. Don't hesitate, guys. I wanted to know, and I didn't ask people during the live audience, who's using Audition already, who's using Premiere. I saw Jean-François directly answer like 50% Audition and 75% Premiere. I always asked my audience, like, what's your like level? How do you feel involved in each product? So we already have Jean-François who answered. The other guys around, what are your things? Are you into Audition, into Premiere, After Effects? Just tell us. And are you ready?
I think so. Let's take a listen to this. All right, this is going to work. All right, so Remix was a feature that we came out with a couple years ago, actually in 2015. And we talked with a lot of editors, both video editors and audio editors, and one of the things that they had done, that they were spending a lot of time on, was making music tracks, whether it's from stock music, whether it's licensed, whether it's their friend's surf band, taking those songs and getting them to, cutting them up and rearranging them to fit their video project or the background for their project. So they might get a 5-minute song, but they only need it to be 90 seconds long, but they don't want to just cut it off and have it fade out randomly. And it's a lot of work to get in here with the razor tool and listen and find the right beat and cut here and then still have it sound musically coherent. So what Remix does is it analyzes a piece of music. It does a bunch of different analyses. I'm going to go ahead and have it do the analysis right now while I talk. It does a phase analysis. It's already done. It does a source-separated spectral analysis. It does timbral analyses, harmonic analysis, etc., etc. Lots of different analyses. And it makes a web, like a spider web, a map of how well each beat in the song can transition and crossfade to every other beat in the song, with some level of confidence on each of those analyses. And then once we say, well, this is a 1 minute and 30-second song, but I only need it to be 30 seconds. I have a commercial or a little teaser or something. I can say I need a 30-second variation of this song, and we'll make a 30-second variation of that song. Each of these little zigzag lines here, which kind of look like old tape splices, like you might be when you were cutting tape back in the old days. That's where we're transitioning from one part of the song, doing a crossfade, to another. And you can actually, I'll really quickly just show you what's going on here. It's really just simple crossfades, simple clips. They're all grouped together. But every time the playhead passes over one of these zigzag lines, we're doing that fade from one part of the song to another. So again, I've never tried it with this song, so we're doing it live. Let's see how this works out. You saw it took me about 5 seconds to do the analysis. I've spent 10 times that amount of time talking. Let's listen to it and hear the results. always use the beginning of the song, we'll always use the end of the song, and we'll remix the middle. And so there's other options. If I want to say, if I want, again, maybe 30 seconds wasn't close, I really needed it to be 45 seconds. We'll do that again. We'll take a look at the clip again, we'll rebuild it. And now we have a version that's 45 seconds, or as close to 45 seconds within 5 seconds that we can get, based on the tempo, based on the composition, without stretching.
And I saw you could decide which option would be better, like more cuts.
Exactly. So I can say, you know what, I will accept a lot more cuts, or I only want as few cuts as possible. And you can see all these variations. Once we've done that analysis, they come and go very quickly. So I can really start to play with the song.
And it's live, really live.
Yeah, it's real live. And I can say, I can also say what I want to emphasize, what kind of transition. So if it's an orchestral piece or a choral piece, or Hartmut's mom's classical music collection, we may say, well, we want to favor harmonic transitions. But if it's some soul jazz piece or something, maybe we want to focus on timbro, something more rhythm based.
Or it's just gonna make different.
Exactly. So it gives us different variations. But again, we get to preview them very quickly. And even if it's close, if we get something, let me find something here that's so I can show. So maybe we don't like quite what it did in the middle, but we like how it has the beginning and the end. We can still use tools like slip here to just move the waveform of that center part and just find and realign it. But all the pieces, all the transitions have been defined for us. We're just choosing now which sections of that song we want to use.
I've got a small question from the go. Just there, is it working with every kind of audio format?
Every kind that you can bring into Audition, absolutely. Which is MP3, which is WAV, AAF, or I'm sorry, AAC. Essentially anything you can bring in. I mean, even back to old formats like SD2, the old Sound Designer 2, or OGG, or FLAC, some of these ones. Audition supports, I don't know, something in the order of about 60 or 70 different audio file formats and all the variations in codecs. So
we can fill the hour when you're enumerating all of them.
Yeah, I can go through them one by one if you all would like.
Please.
Great.
So that's Remix. Remix is awesome. Remix, if you're in a hurry, if you don't want to take the time to sit there and cut this out, if we've got time for a minute, I can share a quick anecdote about when we were developing it.
We have plenty of time.
So about 3.5 years ago, it was Photoshop's 25th anniversary. And Photoshop makes a whole lot more money than a lot of the rest of us do. So Photoshop, to celebrate, bought themselves a Super Bowl commercial, 60 seconds during the biggest television event in the world. And had this beautiful commercial, this beautiful advertisement created, lots of gorgeous visuals of edits and being done, famous works being done in Photoshop. And for the background music, they licensed Dream On by Aerosmith. But Dream On by Aerosmith is 4.5 minutes, and they needed a very strict 60 seconds because at the Super Bowl, you're paying by the millisecond.
Millisecond?
And, well, you're very strict, and they're very expensive, millions of dollars. And so we hired somebody to do a remix of Dream On. They wanted the beginning, the piano part. Dun, 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 dun. They wanted the first verse, when I look in the mirror. And they wanted I hope we don't get sued for that. They wanted the chorus, and they wanted the big ending. Bum, 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 bum. And so we got a quote for somewhere between $7,000 or $10,000, I think. And it said it was going to be done in about a week. It took 2 weeks. It cost what he said it was going to cost, of course. And the mix was fantastic. The remix was absolutely wonderful. It went on the Super Bowl. It was a huge hit. We had a prototype of remix in the application, and so I decided to see if I could replicate the results using remix.
The 2 weeks work?
Well, yes, see how long it took me and how, obviously how much it was going to cost. So I borrowed the Aerosmith CD from somebody because I don't really have Aerosmith CDs.
It happens.
That's a lie. I have lots. I put it in the drive. I loaded up into Audition, and I said, rip the track off the CD into Audition, and I hit a stopwatch on a timer. So I timed how long it took to copy the song from the CD, to drop it in the track, to remix it down to 60 seconds behind the commercial. I have the video and the timeline. It took 45 seconds from beginning to end. It was as good, if not better, remix than we paid for. The only difference was It's selected because it doesn't know the lyrics. It doesn't have the history and the culture behind the songs. It shows the second verse in the song that nobody knows the words to, instead of the first verse that we all know the words to.
So did you then improve the remix to say like, can you give us the first verse anyway? Nobody goes.
Well, I could just flipped it over and then we were all good. But that was a matter of taste as well. Maybe it thought that the second verse was classier or more full of a cultural touch.
And you did this for free, right?
And I did it for free in 45 seconds, so it was pretty fantastic.
The Gogo is asking a very good question. It's like, can a composer lock the remix functionality to prevent someone from using it on his song?
As long as they have, once it's an audio file, there's no metadata, there's nothing that blocks somebody from using it, apart from natural licensing restrictions and copyright. So if somebody doesn't have the right to use that piece of music.
I suppose, it's like the same licenses in imaging, like you don't touch, you don't remake.
Right.
And because we're seeing a lot of sound and audio processing right now with things like Shazam. People just grab in the middle of nowhere to get that, but we also see the same kind of functionality in YouTube analysis.
Yeah.
Because you can get like part of your audio muted if it's against copyright. So I guess we can have this kind of thing.
That's certainly possible, and it won't override those kind of fingerprints. That kind of analysis will still pick up parts of songs. But for stock music or something like that, if you've got a 4-minute piece of stock music, but you only need a minute and a half, it makes it very easy to keep it and have an actual beginning, middle, and end of a song behind your piece without having to do all that.
Of course. I'm having a question by Louis Cagna who says, like, what are the best filters to mix a soundtrack, a voice soundtrack? Is it just EQ plus compressor, or do you have like what would be your advice on that?
The best ones are the ones that you have that you know how to use. I mean, at the end of the day, what a compressor does is it squashes the dynamic range of a signal, and and some of them do them in different ways. Some of them model old tube electronics. Some of them model use new completely digital DSP, and same with EQ. There's a couple main concepts, and then there's variations where designers have chose specific defaults for certain parameters that they aren't necessarily exposed. But the best advice is to simply use the ones that you know, or pick a few that you dedicate some time to learning how they work, what the nuances, how they affect your sound, to get that sound that you're looking for. And the best advice around that I can give, that I've been sharing lately, is for most, especially for dialogue, turn the effect, get the effect until you just really start to hear it changing your sound, and then back it off just a little bit. Just a touch.
And maybe the other thing worth mentioning is that we have kind of an automatic assistant now in terms of the essential sound panel. So maybe another feature to show.
Absolutely.
Where we really guide people who are non-experts to do the right thing with audio, and do the right steps in the right order.
Yeah, and I'll actually jump over to Premiere to talk about that. So something else we learned when we were talking with picture editors in Premiere and other NLEs was that a couple things. One, they all knew that they needed to make better sound, and they didn't all have the budget, the time, or the people to have a professional audio post-production. Some of the other things they learned was that they didn't always want to leave Premiere, that they wanted to, for what they could do, if they had to leave Premiere, if they were in a hurry, if they had short deadlines, they would just stay in Premiere. They wouldn't do it. They'd skip it. So they could put these things out with bad sound. And so the other thing was that they didn't necessarily want to become audio experts. They just wanted good sound. So we took a lesson from some of the features like a Lumetri color panel, which kind of simplified color workflows, but made them more accessible and have a lot more people able to properly color grade their video. And we built what we call the Essential Sound Panel.
Yeah.
And it's based on audio industry mixing concepts, this model of DME, dialogue, music, and effects. And each of those, typically, most audio content in a production are going to be one of those types of content. And each of those types of content are dealt with a little bit differently. They have different effects. They have different purposes for a mix. And so we wanted to provide the tools that you were most likely to use for each of those content types in a way that was not intimidating, was simple, but wasn't dumbed down, was still using all the power of our native effects under the hood, but was approachable to people who were not audio experts and did not want to learn the nuances of a compressor and input gain and level detection and thresholds and RMS and blah, blah, blah. They just wanted to make their audio sound better. So what we did, this is available in both Audition and Premiere Pro, and it's almost the same in both applications. And so how it works is you select one or more clips in your timeline of a particular type. In this case, I've made things clear by color and by layout, but in this case, I've just selected all my dialogue clips. And over here in the Essential Sound panel, I just choose which type of audio those are. So I click on dialogue, and now I have a bunch of options that are really focused on dialogue. The first one is loudness. So you have clips that come in that were recorded at different levels. This one's louder, this one's quieter, this person talks very loud, and this one's very quiet. So the first thing a lot of audio editors would do is go through clip by clip and adjust the gain. We have a single button that does it for you.
Okay.
It analyzes each clip separately, finds its unique value, and adjusts the gain so that everything sounds to the same relative loudness.
And would it be able, like, to say, like, maybe we need a cut in the middle of of a clip, and then just adjust level inside?
Yeah, if you have somebody who maybe talks very loud, takes a breath, and then talks very quiet, you may want to cut that.
So you would still do this by hand.
You still have the control. This is looking at an entire clip, finding the average loudness for the whole clip, and adjusting the gain for that. So if you have very disparate levels in a single clip, you might do. I can play this really quick. Let me do this before I do anything else. This is completely unmixed. This is how this sounds. The dialogue clips are purple, the sound effects are blue, and the music is yellow.
Sometimes a wipeout in hours can feel like a car. Part of your body is getting ripped in a different direction. You're getting water up your nose.
So you can hear the dialogue is getting lost behind some of the music. I'm going to actually mute the sound effects for this so we can just focus on a couple things here. But and you can hear that the dialogue is getting lost behind the music. The music is coming in too loud sometimes. So
sometimes a wipeout in hours can feel like a car wreck.
It's not terrible. It doesn't have any oomph to it though. It doesn't have any power.
Every part of your body.
And here it gets lost. So again, with those dialogue clips selected, by choosing loudness auto match, I've just made all the dialogue clips the same relative loudness. If we listen to it again, I've done nothing else but click that one button.
Sometimes a wipeout in hours can feel like a car wreck, where every part of your body is getting.
So and you saw that second clip. Now you heard it again. It was standing out.
Yeah, and it's completely obvious now with the
test. And so there's other things we can do. It's the next step after you've got everything to the same relative loudness is to see if you need to do any restoration. Is there background noise? Is there electrical hum maybe from a device? Is there sharp sibilants, S's, sounds? And you really just check the box that you want to enable and do less or more, or more. So the editor isn't really dealing with frequency ranges and thresholds and all this stuff. They just have to know, does it sound
water up your nose? You're getting water down your wetsuit.
Worse,
your ears are popping,
so that those harsh sounds or the hum or the noise is reduced.
I think important to know is that all these operations have a specific order. So the idea about the Essential Sound Panel was really there is a virtual professional in your room who is helping you improving your audio if you are not such an experienced audio engineer.
That's exactly.
And this ties into this whole sensei story as well, right? So we are also putting a lot of intelligence into those algorithms to really assist somebody doing the right thing.
We had a question in the chat by Alexandre who said, like, what is the best way to remove noise, like clicks, hum? Is there an option or a script? And I guess we're just
I could show a couple ways. So we do have features, for removing hum, for removing certain sounds.
Do you have like an option for this? If I type
at this time as a real-time effect, no. But any of these clips in Premiere, you can right click and you can send that single clip over to Audition. Premiere will do a render and replace, so you're never touching your original media. And you can always, once I've done that, you can always come back and restore that on render. So you're never losing your original media, you can always come back. But you can bring that clip into Audition, bring it up, and so Audition has both the waveform view, which is how we typically think of sound, which is a wave coming up and down like this. But we also have the spectral frequency view, which shows us the energy level at every frequency range, or at least frequency ranges over time. It's the same audio signal, it's the same recording, but you can start to visualize a little bit better, and you can see when he talks here, you can see his voice, all of his harmonics as he goes up.
You're getting water up your nose, you're getting water down your wetsuit.
You can start to visualize. It looks like when he says water, it even looks like a little wave here. You know, there's little splashing waves. You can hear when there's a breath. You can see that breath right there. And so you wouldn't necessarily know from here that this is a breath. And I mean, maybe it does, but
you get used to it.
You can see it down here very, very easily. And with things like clicks, let's add a little bit to this just to here. I'll just record myself real quick. If I'm talking and I hit it. Whoop, oh, because we have it. I can say I can fix that. No, I can't. Maybe I can't. Let's try it one more time. No, because we're going through the HDMI, so I'm not going to be able to record here. But there's other clicks here, so that's him making that sound.
Popping,
So maybe we don't want that, but we don't want to lose sync. If we delete it, if we just come in here, select this, and hit delete, we're going to lose sync. And if we just hit the volume down, we're going to have a gap where there's no sound, where there's actual digital silence. So it'll be like noise, and it's going to sound very jarring. We have a tool up here called the Spot Healing Brush. If you've used this in Photoshop, it came from Audition. It was in Audition first.
Really?
I'm very proud of that.
Oh.
Yes. They've done amazing things with it. Now it's taking bulldogs off of porches and windows off of barns, but originally it was designed for things like this. So in this case, this little sound again. Let's say I really just want to get rid of that. That's really annoying to me. I can just drag and paint over that with the Spot Healing Brush. And instead of digital silence, instead of erasing all those frequencies, we're using sound from either side of that selection to fill in that gap and make it sound more natural. So you can hear it again. I'll play it one more time. Listen close. So there's still that room tone that's going on. The reverb that's happening around him naturally fills in that space. And the same if you have clicks and pops. If you have either hits on that, maybe you have the keyboard typing, the mouse click. Somebody had a big glass of milk before they came in and they're making those terrible mouth sounds in the microphone. You can go in and actually just paint those out. We have automated tools as well. We have things in Audition like our click pop eliminator, an automatic click remover. These are good effects for that. But again, automated tools are not necessarily going to find everything without a lot of dialing of these parameters. So if you're coming over, especially if you have a history with visual design, Photoshop and the like, the spectral frequency view becomes very intuitive for visual designers that are used to paint programs and that kind of thing. They can now that they can see how the sound changes over time, they can start to manipulate it. They can start using the familiar tools like the lasso tool to select different parts of the recording or listen to just certain frequency ranges and really pull those out. And what's cool is once you're done, you can just hit save and I'll tab back to Premiere and that clip will remain live and it'll update automatically. You don't have to relink it. You don't have to pull that file in and do any imports. It's just as long as it's that file on disk is changing, it keeps
it's
it
just going to switch and you're going to get everything you need. No, that's good. And that's very good. Because I'm going to have a question later about like a full conference and technically the microphones are not like perfect microphones. It's not like a real nice recording room, and we're starting to see that with a lot of bloggers, vloggers, and they are gonna like not have always the best conditions to film, and they're gonna need this kind of tools. And
exactly. And so we actually we have presets in this essential sound panel, so even if you don't want to go through item by item, you can choose a preset that we've designed or one that you've designed or one that your the audio engineer on your team has designed and shared with the rest of the organization that will be able to very quickly improve those recordings and those problems.
And this is really important, right? So the panel is not just a virtual audio assistant, it's also fostering a collaboration between the professional and non-professional. So the professional can find the right settings and then can save a preset. You can distribute all the presets on the different machines, and then people can work with that. So yeah, and it's all non-destructive. So if the professional decides I want to remove that, he can
come back and do it better later. It's a really a lot like the Photoshop Smart Object, but with more disk space.
I'll show you another thing that's pretty powerful. So we're using a lot of, not in addition to our own experience and our own expertise, and those are the folks that we've talked to, but we're using a lot of machine learning and smart algorithms to do a lot of the work as well. So trying to explain how an audio compressor works, not making an MP3, but an actual audio compressor which squashes dynamic range, lifts the gain, and makes dialogue and recordings have more professional sound, more it's a very complex feature, very complex effect. What we've done is we've made it a single checkbox and a slider. And that seems like, oh, how are we going to do that? That's not helpful. But you can see when I check and uncheck this box over in the effects panel, right over here, we're adding our own native dynamics processing effect.
So if I open that's what's happening in the background.
You can see we're adjusting a whole bunch of different parameters and settings all at once with this slider. And so the editor doesn't have to understand what look ahead time is, what band limiting frequency cutoffs are. All they know is less compression, more compression, more normal or natural, more focused.
So at the end of the day, the Essential Sound Panel is just a simplified interface for doing complex audio processing.
Yeah.
I've got one question in the chat. Someone has a friend. Everybody has a friend who does. People didn't. It's not dirty story. A friend who's using Cubase to make live recording in multi-track. Every mic is on track and recording. Is it possible to do on Audition?
Absolutely.
And how would you affect and assign the inputs for the live recording? Because I guess it's something that's less known for people.
Yeah, that's true. So people are always looking at the wave editor and the spectral editing and all this stuff, but it's a full-flavored digital audio workstation.
Absolutely. So when you create a new multi-track session in Audition, there's several options: sample rate, stereo 5.1. We also have templates, and you can create your own templates if you're creating the same kind of thing over and over. If you're interested in doing music, or you want to see how we might lay something out, you can just open the 24-track music template, take a look. It's a good example. Of course, you can create your own from scratch all the time. And again, because we're not using HDMI is overwriting things. But whatever your interface is, if it's a Focusrite, if it's an RME, if it's whatever you have, you can set it up in Audition, and each track you can just specify where the input source is. So if I had an RME Fireface with 32 inputs, I would see all 32 here, and I would say I want channel 1 on track 1, channel 2 on track 2. However you'd like this.
Do you have some kind of very quick panel to not have to do this track by track on the menu?
Not at this time. We're looking into how you can set it. Maybe just say I want to set channel 1 on track 1, and maybe hold a key down and have everything else or increments in order or some other things. But once you've set it up once, you can save it as a template. As long as your hardware doesn't change, you'll always have that template. Everything will already be routed. Audition supports buses, which are the same as like submix tracks or auxes, and so I can route 5-10 tracks. Say all my drum tracks. I'm recording each drum instrument separately. Those can be routed into a drum bus, where I can put effects that will affect everything. But I'm not running 10 instances of that effect, and each track can also have up to 16 sends. So I can send those out to, maybe I want a headphone monitor with some reverb when I'm singing, but I don't want that to be coming out the master, and I don't want that to be burned into the recording. I just need to be able to hear it so that I can hear my voice a little bit better. So you can start to send those. You can get very complex routings. Something else that's cool about Audition that not a lot of other applications do is 3:2 output surround fader. We'll talk about that in a little bit. Audition supports up to 16 effects, whether it's our native effects, whether it's VSTs or audio units from third parties like Waves or Steve Slate or some of these other companies. You can put 16 on each clip, and then 16 on each track, 16 on each bus, etc., etc. So
That's
you can. It's a lot of effects, and sometimes you're going to reach a point where you're not going to, your system can't handle that. And we have things to help that as well. But what that lets you do is it lets you have, let's see, I'll put some effects on the clip itself. So we'll say we're going to put a delay and
it's important to know that all the effects Durin is dealing here with are for free, right? So
they're included inside. You don't have to get your own AU or.
You can, but you have a lot of high quality stuff already in the box.
Yeah. So I'm going to put clips effects on the track and on the clip, and I won't make any changes yet. But where this is very, very cool is, so this clip has these clip effects on there. So no matter where I move this, if I put it on a new track, those effects will come across. And if I can automate any of the parameters for those effects. So if I want to change the left channel mix here, I can keyframe that in. I can record it on the track, whatever. If I also want to have the automation for the reverb width, I can automate that. And that, again, goes around wherever that clip gets put. So I don't have to copy, I don't have to think about that automation that's on the clip. I can have separate automation on the track for the FFT, the notch filters. Again, we can pull those out. There's all the parameters that I can modify. I can show them below. Let's show you. We're going to do the fixed gain, and so I can keyframe that, and that can be adjusted
live.
Live
during the recording, because you get the right mode.
Yeah, so I can set this to write. I can hit play, and I can adjust, say, this parameter here. I can do it with up here as well. So I can grab this and be moving this around. And, that sounded good. And now I can come in here, and I can see which adjustments I was modifying. So gain and frequency. I was modifying one parameter on screen, but it was modifying two of the parameters. So I can actually see
all your actions.
What's being done down below. And if I wanted to, I could come in and make changes to these keyframes. If something wasn't right, I could move it down. If I wanted to do that. And you can edit,
Yep.
So I can overwrite. I can use the different automation modes as well. So that makes it really flexible, very flexible for effects workflows, for automation workflows.
That's great. It's exactly, Mickey List is having exactly the same problem as I do. He says, like, with his friend, his Cubase friend, he says, I have the Creative Cloud subscription, and I'm very interested into doing this in Audition, because it's gonna facilitate everything for him. Maybe I don't know if he's like doing a video clip with that, if he's just like recording stuff. It's very practical inside the Creative Cloud to have access to all those professional effects, and know that more of that you've got the multi-tracking features, automation, and all things that are lesser known inside of Audition.
Yeah,
that's good.
Yeah, so we have over 50 effects that we ship with, but again, you can use any third-party effects. So if you're doing, you're mixing with Oculus or Facebook, the Two Big Ears plugins. If you're doing the ambisonic kind of work, you can bring those plugins in. If you're doing restoration and you want to use isotopes, mouth declick, which is really good at getting rid of those terrible milky mouth sounds. You can do that, and so we support. If you have an Apple and you have all the Logic effects, those show up as audio units. So you can use whatever you're most comfortable with, whatever you like, whatever you can afford. If you want to go and spend money on the big expensive effects.
Yeah, of course.
Something else that's interesting that you just brought up. So let me show you one more thing in Premiere, and then I'm going to show you something that we've been working on, and where we're going to go with this. So I showed you some of the dialogue, essential sound stuff, but let me show you with this music. One of the things that we just introduced, we introduced in Audition last year, we just introduced it in Premiere this year, is auto ducking, which is where you can keyframe the music down so that the dialogue sits a little more prominently, and then bring the music back up. And previously, this was either manual. I'd come in here and drop a keyframe here and drop a keyframe here and then drop 2 more in the middle and bring these down. But it's prone to problems. It's very finicky. It takes a long time.
Yeah.
In a big audio studio, you might hit play and record the automation as you're moving that fader up and down. And that's maybe a little better, but it takes a lot of years of experience to get good at it, to know what's coming and when you come up and down. And it still takes you at least as long as your program is, as your product is. With this, we can say these yellow clips here, these are music. And we have this new option here, ducking. And I just click that button. And now I have a couple settings for sensitivity. When do we start to duck? How loud or quiet does the signal need to be? How much do we want to reduce? How many decibels up and down? And how quickly do we want to happen?
Is it not like too fast?
And you don't want too fast. You don't want too slow. And with that, I click in Premiere. I click generate, and quickly you can see those keyframes show up right on the thing. And they're live keyframes, so I can come in here and I can make an adjustment if I can click. There we go. If I wanted to, I can come and manually adjust it. So it's done all the hard work of laying these things out and getting them to what it thinks is the right base level. And I can still have that customization, but I don't have to do all that busy work. And if I listen really quick, we can hear.
Sometimes a wipeout of Mavericks can feel like a car wreck.
So that's too much. That's 18 decibels. That's too much. That's too dramatic. I maybe want 6 decibels, or I can just play with the settings here. But it's really nice because what I can do when I change it to 6 is just hit generate keyframes again, and we'll recalculate everything. So now it's a little more subtle, it's a little smoother.
Sometimes a wipeout of Mavericks can feel like a car wreck.
And it did all that work for me. And what's really cool is if I hit save, in the past, if you were going to do an audio mix for a video project that was done in Premiere or another NLE. Typically, the workflows for the last 25 years have been around OMF and AAF, which are good to transfer where a clip is on the timeline, and that's about it. They don't send a lot of metadata. The effects are either stripped out or burned in, rendered in.
And render always takes a lot of time.
Takes a lot of time. You have to render the video out as a reference. And there's a loss. You're working with copies of the media. You're no longer really connected. And it was built around this idea, this shared lie called picture lock, which is this magical moment in time when a video editor doesn't want to make any more changes to the timeline, which happens all the time in your experience, right? No, the truth is...
It never happens.
It never happens. People are editing and modifying that timeline up until the last possible second, and even sometimes beyond that for,
especially since now we don't really go, some of them, the movie are gonna go to DCP, and if something is blocked and you don't have any more versions. But with the YouTube experience, it's like, okay, I've got this version on a festival, and then I'm watching with an audience, and they're like, oh yeah, we don't hear that, and you realize something, and you're just getting the time code, and you're like, I need to edit again.
Right, exactly. So what our goal and our vision for the future is this, what we've been saying on the team for the last 2 years, is we really want a life without interchange, where you're not losing any of this information, when you're just collaborating on a project, and Premiere is the best application for editing the video, Audition's the best application for editing the audio, After Effects is the best for animation, etc., etc. And so what I've done, so this is an Audition, or a Premiere project called Audition NAB Demo 2018. We were showing this off earlier this year at the NAB show.
.pr proj. So
.pr proj. I made some changes. I set these as dialogue. I set these as music. I did the auto ducking. Again, it's all non-destructive, so I'm not changing these files on disk. If I go over to Audition, here's that same PR proj on disk. If I double click it, I can choose which sequence I want to open. Click OK. I'll get a little warning because one of the clips I turned up too loud, but that's okay. And there's all the tracks, all the clips, all the colors came across, all the automation, all the crossfades.
The track names.
The track names. Everything. If you look at this clip, there's all that keyframe.
Yeah, the keyframe we just did live. We're not tricking everyone.
This is exactly the same project.
And also the essential sound panel.
There's the essential sound panel. So I can come, click this, and there's all my dialogue clips selected. Or I can click this, and there's all my music clips selected.
I didn't notice you select things when you click on the dialogue.
Yeah, so that's another nice thing. So just by tagging them, now you're able to quickly select all content of that
good.
particular type. So if you need to put out what's called an M&E mix, that's just music and effects but no dialogue, I can just select the dialogue and mute those clips, or I can select just the music and effects and then export those separately. It makes it very quick and easy.
And this is also important to mention regarding the collaboration between the professional and the non-professional. So our feedback was, especially from professional audio editors, if they come to Audition with the Premiere sequence, they want to remove everything the video editor did in terms of audio. So you can just go to the essential sound palette
and say,
remove that.
Everything's gone.
Do the professional
I can
stuff.
start from scratch.
Or you can work on based on the stuff which is already there. So you are free to decide.
Yeah, it's very practical.
Yeah. And those ducking settings I put over there before, everything comes across again non-destructively. Audition does have one thing that Premiere doesn't offer, which is this little checkbox here. If I turn that on, you see the keyframes disappear, but my envelope's there. But now, if I make changes, we update this in real time. And if I move clips around, we'll update that envelope. Let me make that even more clear here. I'll turn this way up so it's very obvious. So if I move this clip back, we're updating those clips. You can set it once, and then you don't have to think about it. The ducking will always be, as long as you've dialed in the settings that you like, the ducking will always be updated.
And when you want to do it softer, you can still change the
decibel. This and say, let's bring this down a little bit more. There we go. We'll bring this up. Whatever we want to do.
And do you think this kind of checkbox will go back to Premiere, or?
Well, that's the goal. So right now, I brought that all the clips in. This video clip that you saw, I didn't render this video out. This is streaming live from that Premiere project. I didn't have to render it out, so I'm getting full frame rate, full resolution, all the effects. If color comes in later and drops all the color LUTs in the line, I'll see them update in the video panel.
This is happening on your project right now, but if someone is working as a team, you have someone doing Audition and getting things from a NAS maybe, or this can happen on a local network. This can happen on
absolutely. We're pulling from the same media. We're referencing the same media files here. So it's one step closer to a truly shared, collaborative workflow. So our vision right now, we're still in this phase of where we're trying to unload the past. So right now you can send different things back to Premiere Pro. You can send each track as a stem. You can see you can render just the buses out as a stem. So in this case, I have the dialogue, sound effects, and music all. Each of the audio tracks are routing into each of those buses, so I can just send back a DME deliverable back to Premiere, or I can just mix everything down to a single stereo flattened file. Oops, get rid of this little slash here. It's not supposed to be there. I can send that back. It goes to Premiere, exports a stereo mix down. Premiere says, where do you want to put this? Which audio track? We'll put it on a new audio track, and there it is. There's the flattened, rendered final. If I need to make a change later, I can always right-click that clip in Premiere and say Edit Original. It'll come back into Audition. It'll ask me, Audition says, do you want to open that WAV file that's in the timeline, or do you want to open the project that made it? So we can open the project that made it and begin just where it's already
Yeah, so it means you can have something your video editor doesn't touch.
Yeah.
And you have your audio editor do whatever he wants.
Yeah, maybe I do a whole mix, but I don't have the final music. So I'm just using temporary music files. So we put it back in. Everybody's happy, says, oh yeah, this is great, but now let's get our final music in. I can come and do that final mix in Audition, send that back to Premiere, and just do the update. We don't have to render everything out.
However, what is also possible and not very well known, that you can actually export directly from Audition the audio and the video using the Adobe Media Encoder.
Right.
So if you don't have a need to go back to video editing, you can just export from there.
That's going to be one of the questions from Louis, who said, like, what would be the best parameters to use from Premiere to export without lowering the quality of a sound? Like, you import a wave and you don't want to get it out with an MP3 quality. So
no, so that depends entirely on the destination format, what your delivery format is. So if you're exporting to in this case H.264, we can come into channel routing. We can come into you can see I'm actually using a preset for that I built, a custom preset that's targeted for Amazon devices, podcasts, that kind of thing. But we can come down and choose any of the existing presets from that AME supports, Media Encoder and supports, or we can come over to Media Encoder and we can create a brand new one. I think, let's see, preset browser. So here I could come in and say I'm going to export to MXF OP1, but I want to make some changes to it. Whoops. Let's see, let me delete all this stuff. This is from demos yesterday. So I can come in and I can start to customize what those settings are and what I want to make available. And so Audition is able to use those to send that project into Media Encoder, queue it in Media Encoder, so you can get to work on the next project in Audition or in Premiere while Media Encoder is doing the work of rendering that video. And you can use whatever the format supports, which again, most modern video formats will support very high resolution, very high quality audio, but you can also turn the settings down to very low quality. So it's that balance of, quality and destination. If you're uploading it to YouTube, you're gonna want the sound very high. You want the levels very high, and probably very compressed. Where if it's going to Blu-ray or a theater, you're gonna have a much higher quality, higher bit rate, audio quality, maybe more channels, but a much wider dynamic range as well. So the answer is it depends.
It really depends on where you're going.
Yes.
I'm checking just now. We have Jean-Philippe who said like it's a great software like Audition, but it's so sad because there's no classroom in a book updated in French right now.
I know that there's some work on that. I'm not sure about the French version. I'll need to double check that. But there's updates that are due around that.
In the books or in video? Because he's mentioning also the last Eleform training it's not completely on date, and
yes,
it's complicated to have training in audio because basically it's still a niche. Although, like you already, yesterday I was quoting George Lucas, who said like, audio is like 50% of my of a movie.
Yeah, so 5% of the budget.
that's not the part I got.
Yes, but that's the rest of the quote.
I think we need to check that because Classroom in a Book is also available in German, so I don't know. So
well, the version of Classroom in a Book that's out right now is a couple years old.
Yeah, so that's true.
Expect a very modern update very soon. I anticipate that there will be French versions and other localized versions.
It's always complicated to get those books because niche market for audio, niche market for people in audio getting books.
And part of the problem is, especially when the applications are growing and changing so quickly that by the time the book is done, because there's there's new features and we've made changes, and that's certainly going to be the.
So, but it's important to know that we have some in-app tutorials. So maybe you can bring that up.
Right. So for people who are coming to Audition for the first time, we wanted to give them some help because we had a lot of people who would come, they be in Premiere or something, they have a recording. And they want to use it in a presentation, but they had background noise or something like that, and so they weren't sure how to. They knew that they could use Audition to clean up noise or to do something. They didn't know how, and because it's a very rich, complex application, there's not a button that just says "make this sound better" yet. But
not yet.
Not yet. We're getting there, but. We did introduce this service called Audition Learn. So it's right in the help menu. You click it, and it gives you several tutorials, and we keep building new tutorials out with each release. So if you want to learn how to reduce background noise, you click on this. It gives you a little information. It gives you media that you can click on and import automatically that you can start to work with to learn how these tools function. I'm just going to drag and drop it right over here, make it a little easier. So and it gives you little notifications of success. If you do something properly, it tells you here's how Spectral View is opened. Click on this button. When we do that, hey, good job, you've done that. So,
it's really interactive, right? So there's an interaction going on between the panel and actually what's happening in the application.
And with the last release, we actually just included, if you've seen Mark Edward Lewis from CinemaSound.com, he has a lot of YouTube tutorials as well. He has a very fantastic, I think there's 160 hours of in-depth audio production tutorials in Audition. He was gracious enough. He put together 2 hours of interactive video content for Audition for just the basics. Here's how to get started in Audition. Here's how to choose, which microphone should you use? What's the best room to record in? How do I load my own effects and plugins?
And you can get that directly inside Audition.
It's all inside Audition. It's all streaming. So if I'm interested in how do I set up my audio hardware, I click on that. Here's the streaming video.
Whether you're using a USB mic or a high.
There it goes. So it's fantastic content. We did a lot of work on it. It's really good. So I highly recommend it. I don't know that we have captioning, French captions yet, but I promise to look into it ASAP.
Yeah.
And by the way, talking about tutorials from Jason Levine, so the worldwide evangelist from Adobe, there is a series out there, Audio 101 on YouTube. It's for free. It's 20 series by, I don't know, 90 minutes or something. So it's really rich.
You can get that from within Audition by choosing Window Extensions Adobe Audition Portal. When that comes up, Audition 101 with Jason Levine.
That's
so
great.
It links right to that, brings you right to the playlist on YouTube.
Cool. I was not aware of
I didn't. I didn't even go there. One thing I discovered recently was like I was asking we don't have in Adobe Stock some sound effects or whatever, and I was like, that's sad because we can get that. And Denis Pierre, which is our French specialist in Premiere Pro and audio, he just told me like, did you ever get to the help menu? I was like, no, not really. And he showed me like the download sound effects and more. And you've got like hours of Jason Levine. You don't hear his voice and you don't hear his Creative Cloud topics, but you get his music.
So we have over 10,000 royalty-free sound effects for Creative Cloud members. You can use them in Premiere. You can use them in Audition, After Effects, anything that makes sound. You can download the entire bundles for each of the different topics. Absolutely fantastic.
That's great. No, that's one of the lesser known things. It's not even a feature. It's like we got
it's
that. By
free.
the way,
it's just free stuff. Everyone likes free stuff.
Yeah, I designed my last introduction video like with all of these, and I made a competition from that.
I'll tell you, just in case you're wondering if Audition can handle large projects.
Yeah, I think it's back to our 32 outputs around fader.
Currently, Audition, the multi-track environment, the main master output is mono stereo 5.1. We do work with plenty of third-party effects and tools for mix, so Spatial Audio Designer, the two big ears I was mentioned earlier. There's several others that are built where you have a control effect that runs on a bus or an application that runs separately, and then you place companion effects that they offer on all the objects that you want to be able to mix spatially in this full thing. So we do support those now, but we know that there's a lot of demand growing for larger immersive audio mixing and experiences in Adobe software. So keep an eye out. We've got some cool things that we're looking at, and if you pay attention to the Adobe Max videos, the research sneaks each year, we've had some amazing sneaks.
Especially with sound effects, more than surround. They call that the ambisonic.
Sonicascape was the code name for that one. That was of just beautiful bit of not only mixing and adjusting, but visualizing where your sound is coming from and where.
We heard like birds and paper anything. That was crazy.
Aux outputs. So as I mentioned, every track can have a standard output, whether that's going to the master or a bus, but you can also specify hardware outputs. So if you have you want to be able to play to 7.2, 32 outputs, you can output.
He's coming back. Like 32 auxiliary output would be okay.
If you're want to output each track to in a space or a bus in this environment, you can set that up. It may take a little work, but again, save it as a template, and you don't have to think about it anymore. You can do that right here. File, export session as template. Makes it very easy. And session templates aren't just track layout and routing. Any automation, any media, markers, You can get everything all set up ahead of time. Do it once. So if you have a daily show, maybe a radio show or a podcast, and it always has the same intro music, it always has the same outro music. You always have maybe exactly at 5 minutes you want to be done with your opening banter, and you want to talk. Now I'm going to introduce my guest today. You can drop those markers, and you can have everything ready to go. So that when you are ready to start episode 6 and episode 7, episode 8,
everything
you just choose that template,
and
everything's done,
move.
and you just hit record and start going.
That's great. That's great.
Can you also open up the mixer just once?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure. So we have a full mixer. Most of the things that you see in the track panel are available here. So you see all the effects that are on each of these tracks. Our sends, so you can choose which outputs for each of these aux sends. Every track has a built-in parametric EQ. So if I wanted to, apply some EQ there, we see that. We see the low EQ here. Panning and the fader, and so these can be controlled either on screen with the mouse or if you have a control surface. So we support Yukon. So if you're using the Avid S3 or the Artist Mix series that are, I think they're discontinued, but you can still find Mackie Huey, Mackie MCU, even the small Personas fader ports in some of these devices. Anything that supports Mackie emulation works. And it's an open SDK, so anybody can go and write custom drivers for any crazy device they want to build or that they want to purchase. It's pretty fantastic. We really want all of Adobe software to be a platform. So beyond just open SDKs and open APIs for developing file importers and format exporters and control surface support, we also offer the ability to write custom panels, which can be all kinds of, whatever. It could be a third-party service. If you're a stock, a lot of stock music and stock sound effect companies are writing panels so that people can. They don't have to leave the application. They can just buy something. They can drag and drop it right from the panel, from the web service right into their timeline. They can preview it in there, and maybe when they decide to buy it, they click buy, and the panel can automatically update that clip with the final high-resolution version.
That's very nice. It's sort of what we already do with Adobe Stock images in
exactly,
InDesign. Yeah, that's
so
great.
It's a very robust scripting support. The panels are built in HTML and JavaScript, and so they're very easy and accessible for anybody to build. And so we're seeing not just companies trying to sell their services, but people who want to add new functionality to Audition. So we had one that they wanted punch and roll. They wanted the ability to just punch in a recording with a little tick, 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 go, and then just keep on recording. So they can go over the top, they can fix mistakes, and then they don't have to think about what those selections are and what those mistakes are.
So we have another question from the Go-Go, the Go, who said, according to you, what is missing from this software? And he said, he precise, don't say more users.
All right, I won't say that. I won't say that it's missing yet. It's something that we don't support, and I think that it's something that I'd like to see in the future. Is Audition is not a MIDI tool. It's not a sequencer. It's not a music composition tool. If you're recording music and mixing recorded music, it's fantastic.
Perfect.
But if somebody who wants to play with virtual instruments and synthesizers and sequencers, it's not what we do at this time. That said, most of us on the team are music. We love music. We'd really like to play with music. And it's something that we're looking for in the future.
Yeah, because so far I rediscovered that there was no more MIDI VSTI instruments inside of Audition. Like once I was like, maybe I can just borrow a keyboard and I can make some notes, and I'm like, I'm sure I did that once. And I was like MIDI something, and I get back and it's like, it was in sound booth somewhere like long ago. It was, and oh shit! And I realized I had to go through GarageBand to make the MIDI, export it, and get it inside of Audition. I was like, I'm not a professional composer, so I won't need like the clock. And I won't need all the synchronization, but I would just like having an input was.
And what's interesting, I don't think anybody wants to just create another piano roll MIDI editor. There's plenty of them out there. There's plenty of applications that are amazing music tools for professionals, but there's not a lot that's really designed for people like us who aren't professional musicians. We have a musical idea. we want to play with it, we want to make some music around it, but we don't have this necessarily the skills or the patience to finish a real composition. And so I think there's a lot of opportunity without making forward-looking statements that would affect stock valuation. I think there's a lot of opportunity for that in the future, is empowering musicians to, or amateur or aspiring musicians to be able to create music.
And coming back to this general question, what is missing, I think, so the team is enormously passionate. And if you have a passionate team, you'll never be done, right? So there's always something to do. And also this full round trip to Premiere is one thing. And also making the central sound panel more intelligent. So there's even more to do, where you can assist a user in easily improving his audio experience just by putting more intelligence into it.
Things are already quite
room,
great.
So
and we've had such amazing breakthroughs with Adobe Sensei, which is the artificial intelligence and machine learning technology, that I think the more we start to explore what else can we do here, the more we start to see old workflows that just don't make sense anymore. Things that a human their ear would get fatigued, and so they would start to make small mistakes over time because they're doing the same small things over and over. Robots are great. Computers are great at doing the same small things over and over without getting tired. So there's a lot of opportunity to bring that Sensei technology, those concepts in, and start to do a lot of work that is going to empower a lot of people who weren't able to do it before.
And you say you're passionate, and I guess your users are also passionate. May we go to one menu in the help menu that I really love, and I always show people, is like comment. Provide feedback. So in French, for the French guys, for French audience, you're gonna go to aide, and you can go to commenter. And then you go to the user voice portal.
Brand new user voice. In the past, you got that link brought you to a pretty generic form. You could say, "Oh, I'm having this problem," or "This is what I want," and you'd hit send, and it would kind of disappear. Now we get all those. We'd read them. We'd try and respond to them, but there wasn't a lot of feedback, and there wasn't a lot of accountability, and there wasn't an ability for somebody else to see what you requested and say, "Oh, I have the same problem," or "Oh, I want this, but I want it a little bit different." So with this user voice page, it allows everybody, every user who comes to this site, to not only share their ideas and their thoughts, but also vote on other people's ideas. Oh, middle mouse click to drag the waveform. If I like this, I could click vote. I can leave comments if I want to tell this person, "Oh, this isn't the idea. What we want is this," or "I want this a little different." It really allows users and the team, the product teams, to interact, to talk with each other. We take it very seriously. If there's something you want, if there's something that you're having a problem with, or even just a question, come to user voice. Come to this commentaire or help.
And don't hesitate to comment, because the more votes, I guess, is the more attention on your side.
And you are going to find MIDI there. So
I was trying to find where I already put my comments on, because I know I did. I should get a badge for most commenting and most voting.
We'll make one up after this.
And then the Gogo says feedback is not a good thing in sound field.
Well, it depends, depends on how loud you like that guitar.
So where did we go with all that question? So make features more discoverable, we did that. Difference between pro and amateur software, we quite said this thing with the difference.
And we talked about that a little bit earlier before the show. I think that there's, I'm going to equivocate a lot like I did with the what's the best effect question. A professional piece of software is whatever you're using if you're getting paid for it.
That's good.
So if, a software can be considered amateur, but if you're making money and people are happy with the results, it doesn't matter what you were using. So somebody who has Creative Cloud subscription, they already have Audition. They're,
it's more, everything is a bonus.
Everything it's there. So if you're building a studio, you're like, oh, I want to be able to do sound production, but of course I can't do that without the name of the competing a competing application. Of course you can. It's just a matter of do you want to invest that time, that money? Do you want to? Or do you need to learn something new? And are you doing it because you want to be the person that uses that application, or do you want to be the person that can get things done? And you can choose whatever you like.
And I think we also need to keep in mind that the market is clearly changing. So this strict border between graphics and video editing and audio is no longer there, right? So there are more and more people, more and more content gets created, more and more folks who need to do everything. So graphics and audio and video editing at once. And this forces us to get all this stuff together and to make everybody happy. And so our goal is to offer an ecosystem as Adobe, which makes everybody happy. And at the end of the day, I don't care if those guys are working in Audition or I'm doing audio and Premiere. Both is fine.
By the way, we're always talking about Audition and Premiere. What about After Effects? Do you have something around that? Because my biggest pain with After Effects is always click render RAM preview and wait to have something clear to look at it, while Premiere is like you press play and it just plays.
After Effects has been doing a lot of work around performance the last several years. So not just playback performance and preview performance, which you're seeing a lot of changes with in the last couple of versions, but also distributing effects and processing to multiple CPU cores. I think once the bulk of that work is done and the machine is upgraded and really running fast, that application, then we can start to say what new things can we introduce? Because we hear time to time, we don't hear that many. We don't hear a lot of complaints from users really about the audio experience in After Effects. Having used it, I can identify a few things I would love to change and really modernize a little bit. But generally, the people who are working in there are working, and their focus is on the graphics. And
focus is on the graphics, but then you get what I get from After Effects would be like exactly what you did earlier on your computer. Like you took part of the audio tracks from Audition, and you built one bus, and the guy is gonna focus on that, and he can use that as a marker and get everything there. And we get things like, I don't remember the name of a plugin, it's track something, where you trap code, where you're gonna get like all the audio cue points, and I wonder if then we could be like I don't know, make bridge more.
No, this makes a lot of sense. At the end of the day, it's all a question of priorities. So we cannot do the perfect essential sound panel and the timeline sharing with Premiere and After Effects and everybody happy at the same time. And this is not even a question of the number of people. It's also a question of focus at the end of the day and delivering good quality finishing stuff.
And we get maybe it's going to be the last question from the go, especially for you, Hartmut. You perfectly get that you're the engineer here. Is there a different kind of analog or digital conversion to digital conversion, or are you all using the same method? Are there different kinds?
Well, we're not really. So Audition captures from the audio interfaces. So the ADC, the audio to digital conversion, is typically done on the interface. So we have a Focusrite Scarlett over here, which has really good preamps, microphone preamps, and ADC converters. The chips that are built into the computer, where you plug your microphone and record yourself, that ADC is usually pretty cheap and not very good. But Audition simply faithfully captures whatever the audio device streams in. So yes, there's different kinds of ADC. Audition isn't doing any of them because we're capturing everything digitally. So that translation from analog to digital is done by your device. And generally you get what you pay for. But even these days, the consumer devices are pretty good. They're not, you get that next level up if you want a tube interface or you want a very high-end hand-tuned interface, but for the most part.
And the question always is if you really hear the difference, right? So,
did you get good ears or not?
And this is, by the way, coming back to this question of essential sound panel and professional and non-professional. The problem also is to identify what audio is good and bad. So a consumer cannot do that. It's if it's louder, it's good. This is always the rule.
That's
right?
true.
So, and that's also something.
Yeah, and if the screen is brighter, it's better. Why don't we have a flat matte screen, please? Okay. So I'm glad to have had you both for like an hour or so with us. I hope you have more time to come visit someday with new versions, new things between new workflows between Premiere, Audition, and yeah, thank you very much, Durin. Thank you very much, Hartmut.
Always
Thank
being
you.
happy and being in
Yeah,
Paris.
any opportunity to come to France, I will.
You're welcome, and I know exactly what you're looking for in France. So.
And we learn
on the
French,
maps.
so coming back speaking in French.
Yeah.
It's
And when we
I'm
get
working
the
on it.
Adobe Sensei translator, it's great. So, and thank you to the audience. Merci beaucoup à l'audience. Je sais que ça a été moins facile que d'habitude puisqu'on était tout en anglais. Mais voilà, j'espère que vous aurez apprécié quand même. Et à très bientôt. Si vous avez des questions, n'hésitez pas. Au revoir. Thank you.
Merci, au revoir.
Bye. Bye bye.